Question, Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I ask the Secretary of State for Business and Trade to make a statement on the future of steel manufacturing in the UK?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The inheritance this government received from the party opposite was nothing short of a disgrace on steel. Over a decade of lurching from crisis to crisis with no clear plan to safeguard the future of a competitive domestic steel industry. But this government is determined to change that. We have been working hard over the summer to set a clear forward direction on steel and resolve a number of complex issues only made worse by the indifference of the last government. Steel has been one of my department's priorities since our first day in office. We are standing by our commitment to spend £2.5 billion to rebuild the steel industry, and this is in addition to the £500 million for Tata Steel. This funding will harness public and private investment to secure jobs and boost growth. We will take... we'd love to, but I can't in an urgent question. We would love to take action to improve the wider business environment for the sector, including reducing energy bills and enabling more green UK-made steel to be used in our infrastructure projects. This government is clear, as the Secretary of State has made very clear, that decarbonisation must not mean deindustrialisation. Discussions regarding the transformation of Port Talbot have continued at pace over recent weeks, involving both the company, the workforce and the Welsh Government. We are also in ongoing talks with British Steel in a similar vein. More widely, in our first days in office, we hosted steel union leaders to join us round the table and discuss our shared commitment to achieve a sustainable, profitable UK steel industry. The Secretary of State and I have also met regularly with key industry stakeholders. We know this is not easy, but we are determined to create a brighter future for steel than the one we inherited.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank Mr Speaker for granting this urgent question. I will ignore the political comments of the Minister and focus on what is more important, and that is the future of thousands of workers, particularly at the Scunthorpe Works, part of which falls within my Brigg and Immingham constituency, and where many hundreds of my constituents work. There have been widespread media reports suggesting that coke would stop being imported from October. That would mean production would be stopping in Scunthorpe by Christmas, and there are rumours concerning the fact that employees will be given notice very soon. This is obviously creating great anxiety amongst those directly employed by British Steel and also those in the supply chain, which particularly in northern Lincolnshire extends to many thousands of people and many businesses. Now, I accept that much of this is media speculation, but if you and your family are reliant on an income from British Steel or a business that supports the sector, it's obviously a very worrying time. Many people who have worked in the steel industry all their lives and people who know about the market for steel have a genuine concern that turning off the blast furnaces would see the end, or at least the beginning of the end of steel manufacturing, certainly in Scunthorpe and possibly wider than that. If we allow Scunthorpe's furnaces to close, we become more dependent on world markets, and effectively the best outcome that can be delivered for that is that Scunthorpe ends up rolling steel produced in countries across the world, which leaves this nation vulnerable to price and supply volatility. Unions have said this would be devastating, and Charlotte Brumpton-Childs, of the GMB's national officer, is quoted as saying early closure of the furnaces at Scunthorpe will be devastating for the community and the workforce, and so it would. Unions have been assured throughout the process that the blast furnace operations would continue throughout construction of an electric arc furnace, but there has been no consultation over an early closure. Indeed, when the Minister visited Scunthorpe earlier this year, she is quoted by the Scunthorpe Telegraph, so it must be true, that the UK needs to maintain capacity to produce primary steel. Is that the government's policy?
Order. I'm sorry, but you've exceeded the 2 minutes. I don't know if you want to give our sentence.
Well, I'll bring it to a conclusion, if I may, Madam Deputy Speaker, by saying that if the UK is going to maintain a domestic steel manufacturing capacity, the government must accept the fact that there is always going to be a burden on the taxpayer.
Can I thank the honourable gentleman for his response? I'd say a couple of things. First is the member talks about being political. It's not political, it's just a fact that the previous government allowed the steel industry to decline. It's a statement of fact. It is also a statement of fact that they have left a £22 billion black hole in our finances. And it is a statement of fact that the money that they committed to Port Talbot came from the reserves which they'd spent 3 times over. So the 500 million, I'm ashamed to say, tell the House, was not real money. It was in the reserves that they'd spent 3 times over in the first 3 months of the year. In comparison, there will be real money for our investment in steel drawn from the National Wealth Fund. So that's the first part of my response. The second is he's of course right in his analysis about the concern that people are feeling, the unease, the importance of these jobs, and the worry that people must be feeling with what they are reading. Now, all I can say to him is we are talking regularly, as he would expect us to, with the trade unions, with British Steel, with the local community, and I cannot comment on those commercially confidential conversations, as I'm sure he can understand. He also points to Virgin Steel, which is a point that we made regularly in opposition. We are looking through our £2.5 billion investment in UK steel, how we can secure primary steel making in this country.
I call Shadow Minister Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. British steel is integral to growth and prosperity. Not my words, but the words of the now Prime Minister less than a year ago. The drive for green steel must mean more jobs, not fewer. Not my words, the words of the now Secretary of State less than a year ago. And during the election campaign, the Secretary of State said, we can't lose the ability to make primary steel. But now we see quite clearly Labour's plans for decarbonisation do in fact mean deindustrialisation, that the drive for green steel will mean fewer jobs, not more. And just like under the last Labour government, when output fell by 47%, the promises they made to steel workers in Scunthorpe, Port Talbot, Teesside and across the country just weeks ago have been broken. For weeks, this government has allowed rumour and speculation about the future of British steel to run rife, whilst thousands of workers question if they will still have jobs by Christmas. Quite to the contrary of what the Minister said, when we were in government, we worked to deliver a more sustainable, long-term future for the steel industry across the United Kingdom, including in Wales, through our £500 million commitment to building an electric arc furnace in Port Talbot. Now we risk being the only G7 economy without the ability to produce virgin steel. So I ask the Minister, has British Steel indicated to the government that it will halt its import of coking coal later this year? And if so, when did the government become aware of this? Are they committed to seeing electric arc furnaces in Scunthorpe? What discussions has she had with the owners of British Steel about the possibility that they may switch to foreign imports from China to fulfil their supply chain obligations here in the United Kingdom? And what meetings has she had with stakeholders, including Ben Houchen and the Welsh Government, regarding the impact of future announcements on other steelworks across the United Kingdom, including on primary steel production? Communities and supply chains across the United Kingdom need certainty from this government.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's hard to know where to begin responding to that. The previous government allowed steel to run down. The previous government didn't believe in an industrial strategy. The previous government didn't believe in boosting our supply chains. The previous government didn't understand the importance of the steel industry in terms of our national security and the communities that we serve across the country. This government does understand the importance of steel. That's why we are committing £2.5 billion from the National Wealth Fund on top of the £500 million set aside for Port Talbot, and we will be developing a strategy that will enable the steel industry to grow. He knows that I cannot comment on commercial and confidential conversations that we are having. I can reassure him, however, that we are talking regularly with British Steel, that we are talking regularly with Tata, that we are in deep negotiations with them, that we are talking with the local community, that we are involved with the trade unions, something that the previous government didn't believe in but suddenly seems to think is important, and that we will get the best deal for the workers and for the steel industry. It is a shame we were not in government 5 years ago, because we are where we are with some of these conversations, and the way that this government approached industry, which is to wait for things to get so dire they have to spend millions of pounds of public money trying to boost to something, whereas our approach is let's build the industry, let's build it up, let's put the right levers in place, and we will see success that way.
Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. President Biden has just vetoed the foreign acquisition of US steel because he understands that it is vital to have sovereign capability in ensuring manufacture of virgin steel. The reality is, at the end of the last Parliament, we were unable to establish the clarity around that objective from the last government. Can the Minister tell the House today, is it the policy of this government to seek to ensure that this country carries on with its ability to make virgin steel?
Can I thank the honourable gentleman for his, my honourable friend, for his very important question. I think we believe very firmly that a successful steel industry is critical to a vibrant and secure future. Crude steel production in the UK declined over 40% since 2010, and that is a great shame, and we will be trying to reverse that. Virgin steel is incredibly important, and that is why we have the £2.5 billion fund. We are looking at DRI production and other possibilities for the UK. We are working on that at pace, and I'm very happy to come and talk further about our thoughts.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Sarah Olney.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. The steel industry has been left in a mess after years of mismanagement. The abandonment of the industrial strategy by the previous government has been a disaster right across our economy, but nowhere more so than in strategic heavy industries like steel, which face many complex and interconnected challenges. We can all agree on the vital importance of steel production, whether it's in terms of national security or providing the materials we need for a green economy. And it's equally clear that the steel industry needs to be supported to move towards greener methods of production and towards a more sustainable footing while ensuring that jobs are protected. The sector desperately needs the certainty of a new industrial strategy. So, can the Minister give us a clear timeline for exactly when we will see that industrial strategy? And can she confirm that when the Industrial Strategy Council is rebooted, it will be placed on a statutory footing through legislation so that it is properly empowered to support our industries for the long term? Thank you.
Can I thank the Honourable Lady for a very sensible and thoughtful list of questions. To answer her questions, we will be putting the Industrial Strategy Council on a statutory footing, and I think that is important. The points she makes about decarbonisation and support for the industry are really important. Look, the previous government supported the aims of dealing with the climate crisis and the need for decarbonisation. They didn't put in place any strategy to help anybody do anything on that front. We need need a proper industrial strategy. Alongside that, we need a proper industrial decarbonisation strategy. How is our big, heavy industry going to decarbonise in a way that doesn't deindustrialise? It doesn't mean they just shut up shop and go elsewhere. How are we going to make sure we enable all these industries to thrive? It's not just the steel industry, she's right. There is a much broader range of industries we are looking at by sector, we are looking at by geography, to work out what is the best way to get this done in a way that protects jobs and protects our industry.
Bill Esterson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Steel is a strategically important industry for this country, as my honourable friend has made very clear, and can I welcome her commitment that decarbonisation must not mean deindustrialisation. We must avoid the mistakes of the past. One of the mistakes made by the previous government was the delays in grid capacity and grid connections. So can she say how this government is working with British Steel and with Port Talbot to make sure that the grid capacity and connections are in place to enable electric arc furnace production to be started as soon as possible?
My honourable friend has hit the nail on the head, as I would expect him to. There are many challenges we face, but grid is at the heart and soul of so many. In opposition, when we were meeting with industry, it was top of the list for everybody, and my honourable friend knows that there are many companies that are saying to us, we've been told we can't get a grid connection until the late 2030s. This is a priority for us. We are tackling that. We are looking and working at pace, and we have a whole range of policies to speed up the grid connections, to prioritise what we deal with first, and to work with the companies involved to make sure we're going at pace. But on steel and Scunthorpe in particular, this is incredibly crucial and we have to get it right.
Gavin Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. In most of the plants in the United Kingdom, in order to make virgin steel, they need to be able to bring in coking coal. The Labour government's policy is to ban bringing in coking coal, which means that hundreds and thousands of jobs are going to be lost. What's the Minister going to do to reverse that decision so that jobs can be saved?
Can I thank him for the question? As I said, we're looking at DRIs, other ways of making virgin steel that can mean we can both. I'm happy to have further conversations with the Minister rather than shout across the House at each other, but I am happy to have conversations about how we can make sure we retain the virgin steel production and we also adhere to our climate commitments.
Torsten Bell.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The steel industry is a cornerstone of the South Wales economy as a whole, and the Minister will know there's concern right across the Swansea Bay communities about developments. I'm visiting Port Talbot tomorrow to visit the plant and hear more about those. But will the Minister give us reassurance that the hard work she is doing will continue to be hand in glove with the government in Cardiff, the Welsh Government, but also with the local councils are working day in, day out to make sure we have a future for the industry and all these communities?
Can I thank my honourable friend and welcome him to his place and reassure him that absolutely we are working hand in glove with the Welsh Government and with local leaders. I have met and talked with the Welsh Secretary of State, as has the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of State, I should say, is not able to stay for the whole of this UQ because he has a meeting about steel. That is how important this issue is to us, and we will make sure we keep those working relationships, and of course I welcome conversations with the honourable gentleman and will meet with any other local people that he thinks we should be meeting with.
Sammy Wilson.
Speaker, I have some sympathy with the Minister's comments about the record of the previous government, because of course under previous Conservative governments tens of thousands of jobs were lost in aluminium, oil refining and steel as a result of the obsession with decarbonisation and net zero. But the unfortunate thing is, I don't think we're going to see any different approach by this government. Given that she's promised an industrial strategy, can she assure us that in that, steel will have, and there will be provision for steel to have a supply of coking coal produced in this country, and also that the decarbonisation requirements, which are damaging and expensive, will not further have detriment to the steel industry?
Can I thank the honourable gentleman for his question? Of course, if we do not take the measures to decarbonise and tackle the climate crisis, the costs to this country will be infinitely higher. This is not a choice that we have. We have to make I didn't know that the front bench did not agree with that. The honourable member opposite is disagreeing. What we need to do is make sure we can decarbonise in a way that supports our industry and helps them to make that transition, and that is exactly what we are doing. The point of an industrial strategy is to lay a plan so that the industry gets the support it needs, that investors understand what the plan is, and that we can, through working together, make sure we're decarbonising. Government is supporting where it can, providing the levers that it can, but we are supporting the industry to do the opposite of what happened under the previous government, and that is to grow.
Sarah Champion.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's a real pleasure to see you in the chair, and I thank the honourable member for bringing this important question. Rotherham has a proud history of steel making, but I've been fighting for the last 12 years against governments for it to have a proud future. So will the Minister commit to address the underlying issues? Will it commit to make sure all government procurement goes to British steel makers? Will it commit to address the punitive business rates and address the high energy costs which are hampering our development?
Can I thank my honourable friend for making some really important points. Look, energy costs are at the heart of this. Our energy-intensive industries are, hammered by energy costs, and although the previous government provided relief, we need a kind of longer-term solution. We need to bring down those energy costs, and that is why we are pushing for clean energy by 2030, which will be cheaper, and why we're wanting to produce more energy in this country, so that we are not reliant on Putin and other international events. Business rates, we talked about earlier in questions, she's absolutely right. We need to look at that, and government procurement is very important. Looking at our supply chains, looking at all the levers that government has, looking at what we can do proactively to make sure that where we can, we are making and building and using in the UK.
Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Earlier in the question, the honourable member for Birmingham, Hodge Hill and Solihull North asked a question which I don't think the Minister answered, so let me repeat it. Does the government consider the manufacture of primary steel a strategic domestic industry that must be protected? Yes or no?
Well, the previous government didn't. We have £2.5 billion fund. We are looking, as I've said, at DRI, which makes virgin iron. DRI is a solution that can both look at the. This is what we are having to deal, just to be clear, with a mess that we have inherited. Virgin steel is important, and that is what we are looking at. I am not going to say to the honourable gentleman right now, this is what we are spending our £2.5 billion investment on, because this is being worked at pace, and we will come back to this House as soon as we have something to announce.
Derek Twigg.
Speaker, the defence industry manufacturing base is, of course, vital to this country, not least in terms of the jobs and engineering jobs it provides. And we know, for instance, that steel is crucial in terms of building armoured vehicles and ships. So can I say to the Minister, obviously it's also very, very important that we have a regular supply and guaranteed supply of steel. And what we want to see is more UK steel used in defence manufacturing.
I completely agree with my honourable friend who has much expertise in this area, and we are working as a department, of course, closely with the Ministry of Defence and the Secretary of State for Defence to make sure we are maintaining our defence. We are building as much as we can in the UK, as many contracts as we can we have in the UK, and we use the power of government to deliver that.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The hypocrisy of this debate is utterly extraordinary. Everybody agrees that steel is of strategic national importance, and yet it is both main parties, led by the Conservatives over there, whose obsession with net zero is leading to the removal of our blast furnaces by both British Steel and by Tata. That obsession is killing our steel industry, it's killing our steel jobs, and it's leading to the inability to produce primary steel. Now, over 75% of all new steel generating capacity in the world is in Asia, and over 90% of that is blast furnaces. So our obsession with getting rid of the net zero...
Sure that the honourable member is coming to a question.
The question is, to the Minister, if you're obsessed with net zero, will you guarantee that if you subsidise Tata Steel with 500 million plus to produce new electric arc furnaces, that money will be linked to the construction as opposed to them take the money early and then not build them?
Minister. Can I thank the honourable gentleman for his question? He talks about our obsession with decarbonisation and producing green steel. We have to also go with the market. The market is now saying to us, we want to buy green steel. If you talk to big construction companies, if you talk to big companies, they say, we want green steel. That is what they are demanding. That is what we will produce. And if we don't, then we will not be selling it on the same basis. So we will use the money that we are investing through the National Wealth Fund to develop a steel strategy. That means that we can bring in new entrants to the UK, which the previous government didn't try to do, that we can have a vibrant, competitive steel economy in the UK, and that we can build really good, high-paid jobs in the industries of the future, which is the green industries. If we fall behind, others will come before us and take our jobs.
Matt Weston.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Everyone agrees that steel is a crucial, strategic, foundational industry for this country. But it is one that suffers very narrow margins. It is one of the least profitable sectors of all. But what we suffer in this country is a real cost disadvantage because of energy. And other countries such as France and Germany have much lower energy costs. They have a lot of nuclear, which of course does meet net zero. So does my honourable friend agree with me that this underlines the importance of why this country needs an urgent energy strategy?
My honourable friend, of course, is absolutely right, and we need to be making sure we are producing cheap energy and clean energy in this country, and that means nuclear, as he quite rightly says. It means solar, it means wind, it means offshore wind, and all of the armoury that we have, and that's why this government has been unbelievably proactive through the Secretary of State for energy in ending the ban on onshore wind, in agreeing to some of the solar panels that we need. We've had the enormously successful round of contracts that will be now allowed for floating offshore wind and all others. We are talking in detail about nuclear and where we take that. All of these things together will mean that we as a country can have lower energy costs and we can be more competitive and our industry can thrive.
Richard Holden.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister was asked a question by the Right Honourable Member for Birmingham, Hodge Hill and Solihull North, repeated by my honourable friend, the Member for West Suffolk. Will this government commit to virgin steelmaking in the UK? On the third time of asking, could she commit to what the Secretary of State committed to before the general election?
Oh, I welcome the Right Honourable Gentleman of Croydon South to his place. As I have been clear, we have been landed with an inheritance where steel has declined by 40%, where we are in very late stage negotiations in Scunthorpe and in Port Talbot, with the consequences of which we are dealing with, but the previous government failed to do. We have a £2.5 billion investment which we are going to be putting into steel. We are working at pace looking at DRI, which produces virgin steel, and looking at other options, how we introduce competition into the market, how we bring new entrants into the market, and we will work a lot faster and a lot harder than the previous government, and we will make sure the steel industry thrives.
Chris MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The global steel industry is investing many billions of pounds in new green technology that is more productive than current steel technology. Does my right honourable friend agree with me that our plan for steel will allow us to attract that private sector investment here, a great contrast with the previous government's policy, which saw our steel industry decline to a size smaller than that of Belgium?
Look, my honourable friend, who is an expert in this and who I have talked with many times, knows and that I will agree with him. We need to introduce new entrants into the market. We need to stimulate the market. We need competition. The approach of the previous government to have a complete hands-off approach until an industry is about to collapse and we have to suddenly intervene with hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money is completely the wrong approach. As it turns out, the hundreds of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money the government had put aside for Port Talbot came out of the reserves, which they spent 3 times over and wasn't real money. This will be real money. We will develop a proper steel strategy, and I very much look forward to working with the honourable gentleman on devising that.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And thank the Minister for her answers. Whether we like it or not, we have to deal with the reality, and the Minister has to deal with the reality that we have before us. The Minister may be aware that KME Steelworks in Lisburn has reduced costs and the carbon footprint with a new on-site nitrogen generational system. What financial aid is available for other companies to help to meet their environmental goals when the pressure is on the industry and costs like never before? Thank you.
And I thank my honourable friend for that question. Of course, we need to be technology agnostic for a lot of this, and we need to look at what the new industries and the new developments and the new research is telling us. And we are doing that, and that means some companies taking risks. It means government needing to intervene and support where we see that there is a new market that we should be supporting, and we will have that approach in government. Technology agnostic, we need to look at what's going to work, we need to look at what's going to make our country thrive, and we will certainly be looking at other countries as well and seeing what they're doing.
Joe Morris.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The last government's plan for steel was to pay £500 million to Tata Steel to not make any steel for years, while placing thousands of highly paid and highly skilled workers at risk of redundancy with no guarantees of jobs in the future. Can she reassure me of the steps that she's taken to secure the future of our strategic industries?
Can I thank my honourable friend for that? Steel is an incredibly important strategic industry for the UK, and it will be saved under this government from the decline that we saw under the previous government, and the £2.5 billion that we are investing alongside the £500 million for Port Talbot will see our industry thrive. We are working closely with industry, with unions and with local communities, and we will work with our regional metro mayors and others to make sure we have the right industry in the right places, and we see success where before we have seen decline.
We now come on to business questions, and I'll allow a few minutes, seconds for the benches to clear and settle.